This Hollywood scandal is called In Like Flynn. He had a huge case. This is weird because to me, this reminds me of Diddy and Jay-Z case right now. The time is 1942, and this is Hollywood's leading man. He is charming and easygoing. His name is Errol Flynn. He had so many wonderful roles, and then they gave him this bestseller called Captain Blood. He was Warner Brothers' top star, and guess what he played? The Adventures of Robin Hood. Now, we all know Robin Hood. He was the All-American Idol. In all his movies, he's rescuing these beautiful ladies and everything. So these ladies loved him. And he was also married to this wonderful bisexual woman. Her name was Lila Demeter. His life looked like a dream. So they're like, one evening, he's at home and the police come knocking at his door. And they're like, listen, you're being charged with being with somebody under the legal age. At the time, Flynn didn't even know that that was a thing. They were like, nah, you get 5 years for it here in California. They picked up a young woman named Betty Hansen. Now, she was homeless. So in her possession, she had a phone number of Flynn and she had the phone number of his homeboy, Bruce Cabot. She told them they played tennis and they had a swim and a escapade party. So they went to his house and they picked him up. Flynn had admitted that he did see Betty Hansen at that party. And she did have his number and his friend's number. He was released on bail, but as soon as he got home, now this is the scary part, because I'm going to tell y'all why this is scary. So they said when he got home, the phone rang and it was an unknown voice and said, tell Jack, I want $10,000, and then hung up. And it says in the book that the affair might have been dropped right then and there. However, if Jack Warner from Warner Brothers, Flynn's boss, had returned the extortionist call. However, the DA did not seem to have a case. They dragged in another dancer from Florentine Gardens, and her name was Peggy Satterley. She was also a pay-for-play girl. She was definitely well-known in the industry. However, nobody knew she wasn't legal yet. Now, hers was different because she was on the boat with them and on his yacht. Now, here's the scary part. Remember I was telling you about the $10,000 being the scary phone call? Okay, so I have a friend that was in the industry, right? And somebody got arrested. I'm not going to say no names because, again, now this is scary because he told me this years ago. And it's like I heard it and I was like, oh, yeah, the industry is crazy. He was like that. He was in the studio with an artist. And when they called, it wasn't private or anything. It came from like a pound star, whatever, crazy kind of number. And he picked it up. And I don't know what the number was, but it probably was like $1 million or something. They was like, tell them I want $1 million. And then they hung up. I'm not sure the price, so don't quote me on it. But it was a big number. And the next day, the person got arrested, year 2008. That's all I'm saying, because I don't like the sound of this book right now. Did the person do it? Yeah, the person did not say that they didn't do it. They did it. But I'm just saying that phone call is very real. There was a big headline all in these newspapers. Robin Hood charged with, y'all know what it is. They said the fans rioted when Flynn arrived to face the jury. Betty, Peggy, and Errol, Flynn, they all told their versions of the story. The jury went out and came back quick. And they was like not guilty. So Flynn went out and he celebrated with champagne, his friends, and everything else. So right there, they celebrating and stuff like that. The district attorney's office called and they're like, listen, the grand jury overruled your decision, so we're going to trial. So now the studio brought in their high-powered attorney, Jerry Geisler. He was Hollywood's shrewdest attorney, and he's here to defend Flynn because, listen, he was making Warner Brothers all the money. So Geisler told Flynn, like, listen, you're going to prepare for a long trial, and we're going to attack these women. The best defense. They was like, as the trial went on and on and on, this is where the term coined In Like Flynn came in. So they was like, the longer the trial goes, the more we could sit here and shatter the women's credibility. Everything. We're going to find everything about their tacky past. And trust me, because of these girls are working girls and homeless and stuff like that, there is plenty to find. So they said that the first witness came up and her name was Peggy. This is the one that was on the boat. She went into too much detail. I have learned this from my previous job. Usually, if you ever get on a stand, you are supposed to say the least amount of things. So you got your girl Peggy going into detail of everything that happened. Now, when you give too much detail, especially when it happened a while ago, it is easy to get in there and tear everything apart. So they're saying in here that she overreached herself, and her lawyer, because he's shrewd as hell, Geisler, they said he was able to pick her version and everything apart. They was like, and why did she wait a year to say that she had, been in that situation? So when Betty took the stage, she had testified about the situation, and the lawyer was like, well, did you ever object at any time? And she's like, no, I was okay with it. And with that, I guess the court went into an uproar. The year is 1942. And of course, this is Captain Blood, and this is Robin Hood himself. So after Betty got on the stand and said that she would never have had any objections to disrobing, the case was released soon after. Errol Flynn was shortly released and acquitted right after all of that. Now, if this would have happened 10 years ago, his contracts and everything would have been canceled. Fans liked Flynn, so he was able to get bigger and better movies. But they also saying that morality had evolved so much that back in the day, it probably would not have even been brought to court, period. The reason he was even arrested was that more pressure had been applied. It wasn't by the public, and it wasn't by the papers, but they soon found out that the prosecution of Flynn was traced to corruption in the Los Angeles politics. They decided the studios are making a fortune in Los Angeles. The Depression has just ended. They were getting kickbacks and payoffs from these studios to keep quiet about things. Now, the studios kept constantly giving up payoffs. So every time the police turned something down, they would give them a cut. So the police were dropping charges and protecting people that the studio deemed profitable. And it would have never happened had the police chain of command in LA been changed recently. And when they originally made the phone call to Jack Warner, now I did my research. I was like, is that the original Warner Brothers? And sure enough, I was like, who owns Warner Brothers? It was Harry, Albert, Sam, and Jack. So yes, Jack was the one that they were calling to give a payoff for one of their biggest stars, which is Flynn. But he did not initially cough up the money when they did the first charge against Flynn. So when the first call came and Flynn had got off, they pushed another case through. Now, guys, the lawyer, what he did was when he selected the jury, he selected 9 women out of 12. And see, the women, they thought Flynn was so handsome, and like, why would he do this? If you can have any woman, and they certainly was hot in the trot for him, they wasn't going to believe that for a second. The reason I'm inclined to be against the jury is that he admitted that the lady was there in one of the situations, and it was a escapade party. Now, you know what was going on in that party. Now, I have never heard of people being in that party and people saying, oh, while everybody's not dressed and stuff like that, and everyone's saying, oh, let me see your ID. Let me see your ID. You understand what I'm saying? And these were pretty much working women. Jerry Geisler, he is the lawyer. He puts everything to shame. Now, you can go back to, I think, number 2 of my Hollywood of Babylon series on the playlist. Charles Spencer Chaplin is back in the books again. Now, this time, this is not the 1930s. He has to get the Geisler lawyer. Now, we know that he is known for getting underage people with child. And that is how he gets 100% caught. But y'all got to go back to, I guess, episode 2. Because he was looking one time at somebody as young as 7 candles. Now, in this case, the young lady happened to be legal. This was about to be a long, drawn out case. This one had 2 millionaires involved. J. Paul Getty. And I'm like, hold up, let me look. Oh my gosh. So I'm like looking and I'm like, Getty? Is this Getty? You know, where I get my gas from, Getty? So as I'm looking, I'm like, J. Paul Getty. And they're like, yeah, he founded the oil company in 1942. I said, get out of here. This is some old money in the building. So now This is a lady. Her name is Miss Plain Joan Barry. She arrived in Hollywood in 1940s. Now, she was expecting a Hollywood movie star life. She made headlines, but it was in 1943 and 1944, and it had nothing to do with her breaking into Hollywood on screen. She got pregnant with a baby and listed Charlie Chaplin as the father. Now, this is how she met him. So she was a waitress and she was doing odd jobs. And one day she was invited to join a whole bunch of girls, and they were going to party in Mexico for the inauguration of the oil man Getty's Avila Camacho. And that's when she met Tim Durant. He was an agent for the United States artist. He introduced her to Charlie Chaplin. At the time, he was looking for a lead to star in some movie called Shadow and the Substance. So yeah, Chaplin told the press, look, I discovered a new actress to play Maud Adams, and her name is Joan Barry. Now, he gave her a contract that was going to pay $75 a week while he was grooming her for the role. So by the time 1942 happened, she already had 2 abortions from Charlie. And then he became displeased with her and he reduced her salary to $25 a week. So she went to the pawn shop, buys a weapon, and decide, hey, this Christmas, I don't know. I guess people usually get depressed on holidays the most. And maybe she was lonely or whatever. I don't know what it was. But she decides she's going to go to Charlie Chaplin's house and take him out. However, it did not turn out so good for her because Charlie was turned on. He thought this was a game. I mean, did he really think it was a game? No, but it was a turn on. He took the weapon out of her hand and let's just say it didn't go right for her. Trigger warning, it was unwanted intercourse. So the next day, a few days later, she turned back to the scene because she was still pissed off. Charlie called the cops, like, get this crazy deranged woman away from my place. A few months later, your chick decides, I'm going to go through the window and get in his house. So by any means necessary, she was getting in that house. This time she went to jail for 30 days. However, Charlie Chaplin had 2 bitter enemies. They were Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons. They were 2 editors in a newspaper column. They were older now, but they were famous and gorgeous back in the day. Now, they usually reached about 75 million readers. These 2 ladies, they were from high society, and they did not like the fact that Chaplin came in and he was poor. I guess they would call that new money based on the Titanic. And he was not a United States citizen. He ended up making a fortune in the movie business. So one day she was minding her business and this redhead lady walks in and she's like, I'm pregnant with Charlie Chaplin's illegitimate child and he threw me out. Now, you know who this was. This was the girl that served time and everything and kept going back and forth to Charlie's house. She was like, let me go pay Hedda a visit since Charlie keeps kicking me out of his house and getting me arrested consistently. They had a whole media tug of war going on. I mean, it was a battle. This Haida lady was writing papers on him left and right, back and forth. I mean, and Chaplin did not like her at all to the point where she had heard so many rumors that he insulted her at his wedding, calling them morons and the shadow of a substance. However, this trial turned out to be the biggest Hollywood circus they had going on. Charlie denied that he was the father. Now, he did pay all of her medical expenses and gave her $2,500 a week of a settlement. And he was indicted by the federal grand jury on 4 counts. The FBI also entered this case. I'm telling you, if these cases don't sound like today's cases, I don't know what does. Chaplin was taken in, arrested, photographed, fingerprinted, everything. And then Barry had the daughter October 2nd, 1943. Now, the baby was born, and for whatever reason, the blood work showed that Chaplin did not father that child. Now, he did pay for the medical expenses, but this, I don't know where they're going with this. This is a gray area for me, so y'all gonna have to make your own assumptions and talk about it down in the comments. But I'll tell you mine. I think that one time when she was probably a little bit younger, because we know he likes them young, he dates them and he gets tired of them. And I believe that he got tired of her and she would not go away. And she might have been used to a certain lifestyle and living in the mansion or being in the mansion and stuff like that. And eventually it's like, I think she aged out. That's my opinion. But y'all got to come to your own opinion. That is me speculating because I'm like, this woman went through a hell of a because it says that she had like 2 abortions. We do know she worked for him. We do know that she was on the screen. We do know that he does have a pattern with being with his leading ladies or trying to groom his leading ladies and stuff like that. And after a while, he gets tired of the same person and he wants to move on. So for the fact that she keeps going to his house and she had a weapon and she wanted to unalive him, I feel like it's probably because he didn't want her anymore. I don't know. That's me grasping. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Although the blood test came in and it was not Charlie Chaplin's, and he had the lawyer of a lifetime, Geisler, they decided against him and ordered for him to pay support for the child. Now, one of the publishers, Luella, who didn't like Charlie also, she was fair. She posted the results of the blood test. However, Hedda, she did not cover the blood test. She left that out. She didn't mention that at all. She just was like, was found guilty. Now, the Russian politics, they decided to get in on the Charlie Chaplin case. And they blamed his downfall on the Russian politics. And Hearst, the one that owns the tabloids, that was his friend. But if you remember in episode 2, they had a whole falling out where Hearst allegedly unalived somebody. And that situation was dicey. But I do know that his papers were slandering Chaplin also. Now, Hedda, she was just so scandalous, and she just continued for the rest of her whole life to belittle and write papers on Chaplin. However, because she did this so much towards the end of her career, her opinions really started to mean nothing. She became taboo. Like those newspapers, those magazines, those tabloids that be in the grocery store where people be like, oh, I don't believe half of that stuff in there. That's where she became. There was another journalist, Lolly Parsons. They were more sophisticated to the American public, and they're the ones that most of the public started following. Now, Charlie Chaplin went on to survive all these trials and tribulations and went on to make 4 more films, one of which was Monsieur Redux. Excuse me if I am saying it wrong. Now, that one was a financial disaster. It was banned in so many places in the United States. That made him extremely bitter. However, despite all the spending they did on that movie, the result was a complete masterpiece, and it was one of his finest films he has ever done. Now, they said that was long admired after Hedda and Luella was long forgotten. We still got a lot to go. I am going to be releasing a new episode every Sunday until we finish this book, and then we're going to get another salacious book. But if you haven't caught up on the Hollywood of Babylon series, feel free to check it out in my playlist under Hollywood of Babylon. Now, please hit that like and subscribe button and do your girl a favor. Let me know what y'all like so I could keep whatever it is up. And enjoy your week.